Hello, and welcome to our first CityStates Hero Spotlight video. As we're currently refining hero skills, this is a great chance to showcase new abilities, and if you're new to CSM, learn a bit about combat mechanics on the way. Today, we're going to be talking about Freya, who's been completely reworked, and is now, in my opinion, potentially one of the most fun heroes to use, particularly when set up correctly. So let's take a look at the changes made. Previously, Freya had the passive of a boost to critical strike chance. This was in practice minimal and didn't really impact the game. It was quite underwhelming. And we really want players to feel the weight of their decisions when choosing these passives. Previously, this one was an easy skip. Her active was way too strong in comparison to the other standard heroes. It was a direct damage smite, usable anywhere on the map. While popular, and for good reason, this skill had just evolved into just casting it on round 1 on an enemy range squad. There was no flexibility here if you wanted to be optimal, and the majority of the time it just became a repetitive process of each player casting it at the start of the battle, without the need to really strategize around it. So before I jump into the new abilities, I'd like to note that although we haven't released much of the lore yet, Freya is particularly vicious. She's regularly underestimated, but still undefeated, at least currently. We really want to give heroes abilities that match their personality, as well as make them feel very rewarding to use, but only in the right situation, encouraging players to make smart, tactical decisions to get the most out of them. With that in mind, here's what we did. Her new passive is Underestimated. Keeping in theme with her character, this gives squads a stacking damage buff when surrounded by 2 or more enemies. While this is very powerful, it can be played around with smart positioning. It can also reward a player that takes a choke point where it's a 1v2 tile fight. Her new active ability is Oppressive Order. This is another very powerful active, but only when used correctly. It removes the counterattack limit on a squad, which is typically 1 per turn, till their next turn, as well as buffing counterattack damage. In conjunction with her passive, should you use it, this can result in high damage counterattacks that may force a player to completely avoid attacking a key squad till their next turn takes place, or to suffer massive consequences. Not only is this ability very useful by itself, but it also has some great synergy with other heroes and squads. There's a number of ways you can milk this ability for all it's worth, but here's one of my personal favourite examples. In this situation, I've chosen to use a two-handed squad to demonstrate the power of Freya. I've chosen the squad in particular for a few reasons. Once their squad ability activates, they are going to be hitting a lot of critical strikes, and most importantly, these can proc when counter-attacking. Two-handeds also have a passive which allows them to still output great damage when their squad numbers are low. Considering that we're looking to deal damage by taking damage, this is a really nice mechanic that's going to keep our numbers up. And finally, two-handed squads are slow. And in this case, it's actually a blessing, because the chances are that some of the enemy units are going to take an additional turn before our two-handeds get to act again. And this means that we're going to get more value, as although we're only getting the effects of Freya for 1 turn of our units, it may well be 2 turns for our opponents. And to add to the last point, this is a setup where maybe using a Satoshi speed passive will actually work against you, so definitely something to consider when setting up. We also have synergy with another card that got a rework, and that's Gunnar, and he'll get a video of his own. But his new active actually reduces incoming damage by 25% until that squad's next turn, and this is just perfect for what we want to do here. So let's actually go ahead and see it in action. Here, the enemy has 2 knight squads, while I have just a single two-handed squad. Right away, I spot an island forest tile surrounded by a sea of plains, a pretty good tile advantage for me to capture and set up. The first thing I'm going to want to do is to charge my two-handed squad's ability by chaining attacks. This is going to allow me to significantly raise my crit chance. Once I see the blue aura of carnage around me, I know it's go time. The first thing I want to do now is to charge my two-handed squad's ability. This is going to significantly raise my crit chance. I'm also going to want to play Gunnar for the extra damage reduction so I can tank a bit better. Once we see the blue aura of carnage around me, I know it's go time. But let's just briefly look at why this strategy is so powerful here. It's not just a simple case of click and win. To start with, we have the tile advantage of forest versus plains. We also have our Freya passive of being surrounded by 2 or more enemies. We then have a 25% damage reduction from Gunnar, allowing us to suffer less damage loss from taking hits. And then finally, we have the very big boosted critical strike chance from our two-handed active ability. Also, keep in mind that this two-handed squad is already pretty wounded now, and will hit numbers much lower than a full health squad. Now for the fun part. Here, you can see that we're going to absolutely decimate the enemy on their own turn. I counted the numbers, and in their turn, their 2 knights only managed to deal 382 damage to us. We returned 1,442, almost 4 times what we received, and that is not too shibby-shabby by any means. And with that, we're done looking at Freya. Keep in mind though, there are more ways to use her than shown in this video, but we'll let the tacticians amongst you work it out yourselves. Thanks for following our project as always, and see you on the next Hero Spotlight. And if you want to see anyone in particular next, feel free to comment or ping me in Discord. Take care guys.